folks, and welcome to the Open Range Radio Show. The radio show where the West is still alive and cowboys are still king. And my name is Troy Andrew Smith, and I'll be your guide across the open range. We're back here now on Open Range, and I've got a little poem that I wrote for you. This poem is called Friends, and it's the first poem that I ever wrote. It goes something like this. Now the old dog lay next to the porch, one ear kind of bent and turned down. He was sound asleep, and I guess he's gone deaf, 'cause he never knew I was around. Till I got close enough he could smell me, and then he perked right up. And I looked at him, and I said, "Old man, I've known you since you was a pup. Now you took right to gathering cattle, and God knows you made me laugh once in a while. You sure done a fine job of riding in my old truck for at least 1,000,000 miles. Now the time has come, they tell me, I gotta take you to the vet. But let's sit here in the shade and watch your son, 'cause we ain't in no hurry yet. Well, I'll scratch your ears and the back of your head just like I always did, 'cause we've changed a lot, but we ain't changed much since you and me was both kids. Now it's cancer, they say, that's eating you up, and to let you suffer I know ain't right. But I wanted you to know it's hard to say goodbye to a friend you've had most all your life."
There's a full moon that silhouettes the mountains, casting shadows on Rattlesnake Ridge. 1,000 miles he has traveled, with a few more left to go. He's headed to that place that he calls home. Broken bones, broken dreams, tired heartache. There's so much that will no longer mend. He points his rig to the home that he left so long ago. This is his last rodeo. From Amarillo to Reno, Nevada, and all the whistle stops in between. He won a few, but life had more than evened up the score. So on this part of life, he'll close the door. Broken bones, broken dreams, tired heartache. There's so much that will no longer mend. He points his rig to the home that he left so long ago. This is his last rodeo. From Amarillo to Reno, Nevada, and all the whistle stops in between. He won a few, but life had more than even done the score. So on this part of life, he'll close the door. Broken bones, broken dreams, tired heartache. There's so much that will no longer mend. He points his rig
that was The Last Rodeo, written and performed by Ben Rombitz off of his Test of Time CD. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. One of the segments of Open Range is our tidbit of history, and it starts right now. Back in the Indian Territory, which later became known as the state of Oklahoma, and is located next to the state of Confusion, but should not be mixed up with Texas. But anyway, on November 4th, 1879, a boy was born. No matter what my kids try to tell you, it wasn't me. My birthday's in July. But I will tell you this, the two of us weren't born very far apart, geographically speaking. In fact, the Rogers home ranch is located just a few miles from where I was born in northeast Oklahoma. I'm proud of that fact. William Penn Adair Rogers grew up being known as the Indian cowboy from the Cherokee Nation. Will, who was as famous for his sayings as he was his rope tricks, said he was part Cherokee, and that was what he was most proud of. Now, a lot of people know all about Will Rogers, or at least they used to, especially if you grew up in Oklahoma. Nowadays, I ain't so sure that's true. So if you'll let me, I'll refresh your memory a little, because I don't think we should forget men like Will. Men who blazed many a trail the rest of us followed into our own era and so-called civilization. Many of Will's sayings are still as true today as they were when he either spoke or wrote them. That's right. Our kid that was born in the Indian Territory and grew up being a cowboy/ranch hand also became a journalist who wrote a syndicated newspaper column. From 1922 until his death in 1935, Will wrote his little pieces for the paper. Here's some quotes of Will's that seem like they should have been written today. Things in our country run in spite of the government, not by the aid of it. Lord, the money we spend on government, and it ain't one bit better than the one they had 20 years ago. This is one of my personal favorites. The income tax has made as many liars out of American people as golf has. We'll show the world we're prosperous even if we have to go broke to do it. Now here's another favorite of mine. I maintain that it should cost as much to get married as it does to get a divorce. Make it look like marriage is worth as much as divorce, even if it ain't. He may have practiced what he preached on this one, since he dated his wife Betty for 8 years before they wed. There are many more sayings by Will, but I don't want to beat you over the head with all of them right now, so I'll save some to hit you with later. Will Rogers was a masterful trick roper and performed some tricks that have yet to be duplicated. In fact, his first movie, he was an actor too. In fact, in 1934, he was voted the most popular male actor in Hollywood. But here I am getting off the trail again, and that can lead you to who knows where out on the open range. So where was I? I was fixing to tell you that Will's first movie was entitled Ropin' Fool. He said he wanted to use the new technique of slow motion photography to show the kids how it used to be done. If you're a student of the art of roping or of movies, this is a must-see movie. Did you know that Clem Rogers, Will's father, used to send him out to work on the ranch and then would find him at the depot there in Claremore? He'd be doing rope tricks and entertaining the people as he waited for the train. And this was the basis for the record-setting, long-running Broadway musical Oklahoma. I believe it was written by Rogers and Hammerstein, but since I can't hardly pronounce Hammerstein, I decided just to leave it out and go on with other tidbits of information about Will Rogers. Now, Will also performed in Wild West shows, on vaudeville, and in the Ziegfeld Follies. I think that's actually Ziegfeld Follies, but you get the idea. Same one that Fanny Bryce starred in. He later moved on to radio, wrote a daily newspaper column, and in his spare time played polo and promoted aeronautics. He was a fan and friend of Charles Lindbergh and Wiley Post. He kidded presidents, was an ambassador to foreign countries, and was mayor of Beverly Hills, California for a while. I bet that was a trip. He declined to run for governor of California. You know that old saying, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes? Growing up in Oklahoma, I was always told that Will Rogers had said that. He did too, at least once, because I actually saw an old film clip where he did say that. But when I moved to Montana, up there they claimed Charlie Russell was the originator of the saying. Now, I'm a-thinking, since both men were friends and they'd cowboyed on some of the same outfits, that maybe, just maybe, neither one of them originated that saying. I'm betting they both heard it from some old hand or chuckwagon cook, and they both used it when they needed to make a point, or, more'n likely, to shut somebody up that was complaining about the weather, when everybody knew there was nothing that could be done about it except wait. Will Rogers is most often quoted as saying, "I never met a man I didn't like." This is true, he did say that. He even wanted it written on his gravestone. But what historians and especially politicians leave out is the rest of the statement, or as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story. The full statement was, "I never met a man I didn't like, but he has to be a man before I like him." The men that Will Rogers had for his contemporaries, I believe, were a different grade of grease from the ones that run things today. Those men like FDR and Wiley Post, Charles Lindbergh, Charlie Russell, and more that I'm forgetting at the moment, I'm sure, are men that I've never learned their names, but they stood up for this country when they needed to. They were all men that had the bark on. I know I'd be embarrassed for Will Rogers to come back to this world and see the pitiful state our government is in, and who all we have allowed to run it. By the way, this is just my opinion and doesn't necessarily reflect the views of this station. I don't want to be politically incorrect on somebody else's dime. Anyway, back to Will Rogers. He loved to fly, and he flew all over the world. In August 1935, he was accompanying his longtime friend Wiley Post to test a new airmail route across Alaska and Siberia. They left Point Barrow, Alaska. You know, there is some debate on whether it's called Point Barrow or just Barrow, Alaska. I'm not expert enough to say for sure, so I'll give you the option of picking out which name you like the best. Me, I like the sound of Point Barrow, Alaska, and that's what I was told it was when I was a kid, so that's what I go with. But anyway, they left Point Barrow, Alaska, and at the time of the crash that killed both men, Will was just starting to type that day's column. The last word William Penn Adair Rogers ever typed, ironic as it may be, was the word death. Now this is my personal #1 favorite quote of Will's, even though it's lesser known than most of them are. We are just here for a short spell, and then we pass on. So get a few laughs and do the best you can. Live your life so that whenever you lose, you are ahead. Well, let's make sure we never forget men like William Penn Adair Rogers. And that's our little tidbit of history for today.